Always thought-provoking and informative. Forget the spin and media bias from the left and right. We know you are sick and tired of being told what to think, how to act, and what you can and can't do. Direct from the Ustream It Broadcast Network, it's time for another edition of the Last Christian Newscast and Radio Show with your hosts J.D. Williams and T.L. Farley. Real news and biblical common sense analysis starts in 3, 2, 1.
Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for another edition of the Last Christian Newscast and Radio Show. My name is J.D. Williams here in East Texas. Joining me there from the Dallas and Fort Worth area, my good friend, my co-host, my brother in Christ, Mr. T.L. Terry Farley. How things going in the Metroplex today, Terry?
Boy, I'm telling you, they're upside down and forward and back. So we're doing okay, though.
All right. Well, I'm going to really quick here put the title screen back up on full screen here. Again, if you guys are not getting us in video form, go to www.lastchristian.net. That's www.lastchristian.net, and you can always get the video version there, as well as Facebook, YouTube, many other sources, and of course, all across more than 30 stations on our radio network, podcast platforms, all that good stuff. But anyway, you can see there what I've got. World War II, inevitable? And that's a question. And I'm asking that question because of the people that you see that are pictured right there. To top left is Medvedev. He is used to be the president of Russia. He's now in the Defense Department there, and we're going to have a lot on him here in a minute. There in the middle on the top, of course, is the Chinese premier, and on the right-hand side is Mr. Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia. And bottom left, well, that's our friend, Kim Jong-un in North Korea. And then over there on the far right is the leader of Iran. And even though his picture may be the smallest, he may have the most issues that are going to have to be discussed. I don't know. We'll just have to see. Iran is a mortal enemy of Israel, and that's what we're going to be talking about quite a bit today. Is nuclear war inevitable? I mean, that's a question, and I believe that we're beginning to get an answer on that, and we're going to go through it as the day goes on. I do want to play a clip right away, and this is out of Gaza, okay? This is out of Gaza, which, of course, is a problem for Israel, has been for a long time. But I want you to listen to this one very quickly.
And in one place, burning Hamas flags before police moved in and broke up the protests. Police destroyed mobile phones of people who were filming in Khan Yunis, and witnesses said there were several arrests. Kevin Sanders reporting.
Okay, that was about half the report. Don't know exactly why it did that, but in any regard, the situation there in Gaza is that these people are protesting for the first time, really, what is going on in Israel and in the Gaza Strip, but they're not protesting Israel. They're protesting Hamas. That's kind of that is a little bit on the that's different, and it's because they were losing electric power and that kind of thing, and they were they were chanting, "This is a shame! It's a shame! It's a shame!" So anyway, that's what that was all about. Sorry, you only got half the report there, but let's move on to Israel itself, and let's listen to this one real quick.
Thousands of flag-waving Israelis renewed their protest nationwide after sundown on Saturday, capping a week of turmoil in which Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pushed through a highly contested law that limited some Supreme Court power.
From a remote intersection among the lush hills of the northern Galilee to the avenues crisscrossing the financial hub of Tel Aviv, protesters beating drums and blaring horns took to the streets on a hot evening at the end of Sabbath. Guy Davis reporting. And
all they're protesting is the fact that a court, just a court, can decide what laws are valid and what laws aren't. Now, if, I would be protesting it if that was the case. So, I don't get it. Terry, do you understand what they're protesting other than that they just don't like Benjamin Netanyahu and they're radicals, they're leftists, they're, in my personal opinion, idiots. Do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, Dan just got back from Israel yesterday, and he actually, what he understands, and again, this is my understanding, this is my opinion in terms of what I've heard.
Okay.
What's really going on, and this is what at least is understood by the people that are protesting, is that what the court has been given the freedom to do is to outlaw any religion except Judaism. And they've done it in a very subtle way so that, as an example, you can be whatever you want to believe, but there are certain restrictions that are coming into place for people coming into the country in terms of what they believe and so forth and so on. I do not have the details, but this is a slant that I had not heard reported anywhere. Yeah. And this is Dan telling me.
That's a slant, all right. That's not what's going on.
He worked.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, this is what Daniel talking with Palestinians, and now I'm giving you the report of what I have heard from them. Yeah. Palestinians, and this is what, and these are not Palestinian Islamists. These are Palestinian Christians that are talking about this.
Okay. All right. Anyway. Again, I wish I could say that I could validate that, but instead, all of the information that I have contradicts that. So I'm just going by factual news reporting. Okay. Sure. I do want to move on here, and we'll go to North Korea. And again, you remember the picture there, bottom left of the screen, what you can see of him there, Kim Jong-un. Let's listen to this.
North Korea's foreign ministry last week vowed that the country would annihilate the United States, adding that the U.S. would be terminated this century.
Should the U.S. choose to offend our republic, we will annihilate them by using all our military power that we have gathered so far, the North Korean diplomats said in a statement on the 70th anniversary of the Korean War armistice. Guy Davis reporting.
Now, they call that Victory Day, and it was celebrated not only by the North Koreans, but also by the Russians and by the Chinese. So this is, it's a situation where, you remember when President Trump took office, everybody thought, well, hey, maybe we're going to go to war with North Korea, and he was tough on them. And they stopped testing missiles. They invited him to come to North Korea. The relationship was actually better. I'm not going to say it was great, but it was better than it has been in decades. And as soon as President Trump left office and Joe Biden came into office, everything went back to the way it was before. And now they're even saying that they're going to annihilate the United States of America. Think about that. I mean, that's a change in less than 4 years. Just incredible. But there's more. Let's listen to this report again involving North Korea, Russia, and the Ukraine. Listen to this.
Ukrainian soldiers were observed using North Korean rockets that they said were seized by a friendly country before being delivered to Ukraine, the Financial Times reported on Saturday.
Ukraine's defense ministry suggested the arms were captured from the Russians, the newspaper said. The United States has accused North Korea of providing arms to Russia, including alleged shipments by sea, but has not offered proof, and North Korean weapons have not been widely observed on the battlefields in Ukraine. Harry Michaels reporting.
Now, I understand why the United States and others are upset that North Korea is sending weaponry to the Russians to be used in the Ukraine. But let's look at it from the other point of view just for a second. And every time I do this, I need to emphasize the fact I'm not on Russia's side. I'm not. I want to make that clear. I'm not on Russia's side. But Russia is seeing the NATO countries arming the Ukraine, sending them massive billions of dollars of money, talking about how Russia needs to be defeated. And so the Russians are saying, hey, if you are going to supply your weaponry to them, then why can't we use our friends to get weaponry for us? I mean, it's kind of a common sense thing, in my opinion. But again, that's just me, an observation. Terry, you have a comment?
Well, what they believe and what they want to do and so on and so on, it really doesn't matter. Russia's going to do this. China's going to do this. They're not going to be seeking permission. This is what goes on in war. And you say, well, the war hasn't been declared. No, the war wasn't declared in Vietnam either. So what?
Right.
They declared the war after it was over.
Well,
That's
and it wasn't. Vietnam was never a war. It was a police action. Korea was never a war. It was a police action.
Right.
And
That's right.
in both cases, Russia supplied one side with weaponry, and we supplied the other side with weaponry. It was a proxy war.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's what's going on now. It's a proxy war. I mean, any way you look at it, that's exactly what it is. Okay, now I'm going to let you guys listen to this one as well. I almost didn't, but I'm going to. This is Pakistan. Okay, terrorist activity. Let's listen to this.
Investigations are continuing after over 50 people died and nearly 200 were injured in a bomb blast in Pakistan. The explosion took place during a political rally in the northwestern part of the country, close to the Afghan-Pakistan border. Ishan Gaj reports.
Initial reports say it was a suicide bomb attack. The affiliation of the perpetrator is still unknown, but reports say a local unit of the terrorist organization ISIS could be behind it. The attack took place during a political rally organized by the JUIF party, which is a crucial ally for the ruling coalition in Pakistan. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif says it's an attack on Pakistan's democratic system and has issued orders to immediately arrest those responsible. Local reports say rescue operations have now ended, but concerns remain that the death toll could mount as some of the survivors are still in critical condition. Pakistan has faced several deadly terrorist attacks from the Pakistan Taliban, also known as the TTP, and ISIS's local modules in the country. Ishan Garg, New Delhi.
Okay. Now, the reason that I almost didn't play that is because it doesn't really play into anything that we're talking about here, but except for the fact that you're going to hear wars and rumors of wars. We've talked about that. In the past, and terrorist activity is terrorist activity. I don't care if it takes place in Pakistan, Israel, or the United States. Terrorists are terrorists. So anyway, that's probably enough on that one. I want to move on. This one is something that you're going to listen to very carefully. I got a lot on this as we go forward. Let's listen to this.
A senior Ukrainian official reported heavy fighting in the northeast of the country on Sunday, with Kyiv's forces holding their lines and making gains in some areas.
Russia's military said it had halted Ukrainian forces in the northeast. The military also said it brought down 3 Ukrainian drones which had tried to strike Moscow and damaged a high-rise building reported to house government offices. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky described Sunday as a good day, a powerful day, at the front. Harry Michaels reporting.
Now, here's where we're going to start getting into some stuff, because the Ukraine continually tells us how their counteroffensive, how effective it is, and what they're going to do, and how they're going to win, and all this kind of stuff. And the reporting that I'm getting, and it's all verified, bunch of reports here, are not painting the same picture that Mr. Zelensky is doing. Now, Terry, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes here, and then we're going to get into this because it does play into where we're going in this show, and we're going to talk a lot about it in the first and second half of the show. We're also, of course, going to get back into the book of Genesis, talk about Lot, talk about the genealogy moving forward. Hopefully get a lot of scripture in a day. It's just going to depend on how things go. But Terry, I do want you to go ahead and get all of your stuff in place. I'm going to give you 2 minutes here in just a minute. Just a really quick reminder that the Last Christian Newscast and radio show is proud to partner with a great educational program for youth based on solid Christian principles and values. Now, as a parent concerned about what your children are exposed to and learning in public schools, you will appreciate the opportunity to learn about Kirkwood's Christian online learning program that will keep your kids engaged and learning, all without worrying about the type of curriculum being presented to them. It only takes a few minutes to set up the program, and your kids can begin working independently on any device, including desktop computers, laptops, tablets, iPads, even smartphones. Now, you can learn more about this program on the Last Christian website at www.lastchristian.net. That's www.lastchristian.net for all of the free information on Kirkwood's homeschool learning program for kids. And hey, get this. The whole program, well, it only costs you about $1 a day. It doesn't get better than that. Visit us at www.lastchristian.net. That's www.lastchristian.net and receive your information all about Kirkwood's homeschooling learning program for kids. And with that, Terry, you are up for your 2 minutes beginning right about now.
Yeah, Jude has only one chapter, thus we reference Jude by verses. Carrying forward Jude verses 6 and 7, and the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he hath reserved in everlasting chains under darkness, under the judgment of the great day, even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh, are set forth an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire. Sound familiar, or sound of freedom? And the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, speaks directly to Genesis 6, and the angels taking human wives. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same mighty men which were of old, men of renown. Additionally, the verse provides insight into the heavenly realm with an aside. Habitation is being described. The angels not keeping their first estate, but leaving their habitation, strongly suggests eternal habitations, reminiscent of Paul's 1 Corinthians 15 description of our bodily transformation at the rapture. Now this I say, brethren, that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God, neither doth corruption inherit incorruption. Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump. For the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible. We shall all be changed. For this corruptible must put on incorruption, and this mortal must put on immortality. So when this corruptible shall have put on incorruption, and this mortal shall have put on immortality, then shall be brought to pass the saying that is written, death is swallowed up in victory.
Okay. All right, Terry, got to break in on you right there, and we'll pick you up again in the second half of the show. Now, I'm going to quickly move on here to what I really want to get into today, at least in the news part of it, and that is in the Ukraine. Let's, first of all, I'll read you this one, okay? This is from Al Jazeera, okay? Al Jazeera News Service, and where we might not like them, they're very reliable nonetheless. The Polish Prime Minister has expressed concern about the movement of Russian Wagner forces in Belarus toward the Polish border. To quote him, he says, "We have information that more than 100 Wagner mercenaries have advanced toward the Suwalki Gap, not far from Grodno in Belarus." Now, he told a news conference on Saturday that this makes the situation on the border even more threatening. He warned during a visit to an armament factory there. Grodno is located in the west of Belarus, about 15 kilometers or 9 miles from its border with NATO members, Poland and Lithuania. The Suwalki Gap is a narrow strategic land corridor on the territory between Belarus and Russia's Baltic area. Poland is a member of both the European Union and NATO and is worried about its security with Russian allies Belarus and with Ukraine also on the east border. The fears have grown since the Wagner Group mercenaries arrived in Belarus earlier this month, and Poland has begun moving more than 1,000 troops to the east of the country amid rising concerns that the presence of the Wagner fighters in Belarus could lead to increased tension on the border. Remember, if they go into Poland, you're looking at World War III. Okay, I'm just pointing that out real quick. I want you to now to listen to this report about the counteroffensive there from the Ukrainians.
A senior Ukrainian official reported heavy fighting in the northeast of the country on Sunday, with Kyiv's forces holding their lines and making gains in some areas.
Russia's military said it had halted Ukrainian forces in the northeast. The military also said it brought down 3 Ukrainian drones which had tried to strike Moscow and damaged a high-rise building reported to house government offices. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky described Sunday as a good day, a powerful day, at the front. Harry Michaels reporting.
Okay, now you notice that they're still being optimistic in their reporting, at least through Zelensky, that they're making some advances or whatever. Here is a report from Ukrainian news. Okay, that and here's the title, and this is kind of an oxymoron in my opinion, but anyway, the title of their report is "The Russians Were Waiting for Us." You think? I mean, I want you to think about this for a minute. They have been talking about this counteroffensive coming for months and months. They have been building up forces in a particular area for months and months. You think the Russians didn't know that? You think maybe they weren't listening to news reports? Do you think that maybe they were just sitting there, oh, well, we don't believe them, they're really going to do it? No, they fortified. They put their troops in place. They did everything that they possibly could to stop them. Now the troops at the spearhead of Ukraine's counteroffensive say a battle last week along the front in the southeast proved to be tougher and bloodier than expected. Again, the big headline here, the Russians were waiting for us. Then it says, our mission was planned to take 2 days. Now, this is from Ukraine. This is the Ukrainian military speaking. Listen carefully. Our mission was planned to take 2 days. But we couldn't drive in during the darkness at the right time for a few reasons. So we drove in later and lost the right momentum. Many of us who went will never come home. Does that sound like a winning operation to you there, Terry?
No, it doesn't. It sure doesn't. And they're admitting it, and it's which I don't know. The whole thing's a confusion. It gets worse.
Zelensky predicts fighting in Russia inevitable. This is Ukrainian President Zelensky says that fighting in Russia is inevitable. Now, the escalation in violence comes as Ukraine is set to begin discussions with the United States on security guarantees in a process of joining NATO. I mean, but he's threatening now to actually send troops into Russia.
That's I think my take on that is he's that message was for the U.S. Congress, not for the Russians. He wants more money.
Maybe so, but the U.S. Congress isn't liking it very much. And a former president that we hold in high esteem, he said that we should cut off all money to them. So you're going to see a lot more. And I told you guys this in a previous show. You're going to see them move away from military armaments and money sent for that purpose to humanitarian aid. And when they make that change, Ukraine is history. They're done, because if they don't get support, they're done. But here's another report again from the Ukraine. Russians warned of devastating attack on August 24th. They're even giving a date. This is how crazy the Ukrainians are. They're even giving a date. Okay, a new video from the Ukrainian Armed Forces. I don't think it can be any more clear than that, right? The Ukrainian Armed Forces did this video. Okay, it appears to warn Russia of an impending attack on multiple cities coming in less than a month. The clip posted on the AFU Stratcom Telegram channel shows a young cartoon boy inside a ruined house weeping over a drawing of a family with a Ukrainian flag. Red lines are then shown moving from different parts of the Ukraine to places in Russia or occupied by Russia, including a couple of cities that I can't pronounce. The final red line is shown extending from Kyiv to Moscow before the screen goes dark and a date is given, a date plastered up on the screen that says August 24th. And the result remains the pain and tragedy of the occupiers. So they're giving Russia an exact date. Exact date.
Yeah.
That's about the stupidest thing that I've seen in warfare.
Well,
Okay.
again, that the purpose of the date is so that what they're saying to America is we want money and we want it now.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if they're talking to America or not, because America is really nobody to count on right now. Okay. Anyway, here's another one. Here's another one. This is a Putin ally. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is the Russian Defense Ministry says it prevented an attempt by Ukraine to attack Crimea with 25 drones overnight, with another 9 drones crashing into the Black Sea. He also warned Kyiv that they should pray to our warriors that they do not allow the global nuclear fire to flare up. Okay, now this is Dmitry Medvedev, again, former president there. Our armed forces, repelling the counteroffensive of the collective enemy, protect the citizens of Russia and our land. This is obvious to all decent people. But beyond that, they prevent world conflict. After all, if we imagine that the offensive of the Ukrainians with the support of NATO was successful and they seized part of our land, then we would have to, by virtue of the rules of the decree of the President of Russia dated June 2nd, 2020, go for the use of nuclear weapons. There is simply no other way out. Therefore, our enemies must pray to our warriors. They do not allow the global nuclear fire to flare up. I don't know how it can be any more specific than that. They will go to nuclear weapons, which I warned off, 9 months ago? I believe
longer.
Yeah, I believe that this is going to occur. And I know that a lot of you are listening to us from the Ukraine, from that region there. And I highly suggest to you, if you can possibly get out, get out. You know, I mean, hey, if everything goes back to normal, fine, then go home. But get yourself out of danger if you possibly can. I do not see a good outcome here. Now, we're going to touch on this just a little bit more after the break in the second half of the show, and then we're going to move on, and we're going to be talking about Genesis again. We're also going to give you some information about a 3-part series that will begin here in just a few days. Terry has been the guiding light on this one, and this is going to be a prophecy series. It'll be 3 shows that we have. Hope to have some surprise guests join us along the way. I think that you're going to find it very, very informative. We're calling it, well, Terry wanted to call it the first annual, and I guess we should call it the first annual, but the reason that I'm leaving first annual off of there is because God doesn't promise me a year. That's the only reason I'm not putting it there, okay? But anyway, if you guys will just stick with us here, we'll be back right after the break with the second half of the Last Christian Newscast and Radio Show.
The Motivation Minute is courtesy of InsuranceChicken.com. Today's quote was submitted by Andy. Charles Colson said, "I know the resurrection is a fact, and Watergate proved it to me. How? Because 12 men testified they had seen Jesus raised from the dead, and they proclaimed that truth for 40 years, never once denying it. Every one was beaten, tortured, stoned, and put in prison. They would not have endured that if it weren't true. Watergate embroiled 12 of the most powerful men in the world, and they couldn't keep alive for 3 weeks. You're telling me 12 apostles could keep alive for 40 years? Absolutely impossible." I love that quote. No matter what you believe, it is hard to dispute that. Think about how hard it would have been for them to pull off a hoax of that magnitude. This has been today's Motivation Minute, courtesy of InsuranceChicken.com. They're known for insurance quotes. I'm John Small. Thanks for listening. Your favorite motivational quotes can be submitted for upcoming programs at motivationminute.org.
Just a really quick reminder that the Last Christian Newscast and Radio Show is proud to partner with a great educational program for youth based on solid Christian principles and values. Now, as a parent concerned about what your children are exposed to and learning in public schools, you will appreciate the opportunity to learn about Kirkwood's Christian online learning program that will keep your kids engaged and learning, all without worrying about the type of curriculum being presented to them. It only takes a few minutes to set up the program, and your kids can begin working independently on any device, including desktop computers, laptops, tablets, iPads, even smartphones. Now, you can learn more about this program on the Last Christian website at www.lastchristian.net. That's www.lastchristian.net for all of the free information on Kirkwood's homeschool learning program for kids. And hey, get this, the whole program, well, it only costs you about $1 a day. It doesn't get better than that. Visit us at www.lastchristian.net. That's www.lastchristian.net and receive your information all about Kirkwood's homeschooling learning program for kids.
Here's the latest from the KRRB Newsroom.
This is the latest news headlines in 60 seconds with Alan Edwards.
A senior Ukrainian official reported heavy fighting in the northeast of the country on Sunday, with Kyiv's forces holding their lines and making gains in some areas.
Russia's military said it had halted Ukrainian forces in the northeast.
Several thousand people briefly took to the streets across the Gaza Strip on Sunday to protest chronic power outages and difficult living conditions, providing a rare public show of discontent with the territory's Hamas government.
Marches took place in Gaza City, the southern town of Khan Yunis, and other locations.
North Korea's foreign ministry last week vowed that the country would annihilate the United States, adding that the U.S. would be terminated this century. When viewed through the wide lens, renters across the U.S. finally appear to be getting some relief, thanks in part of the biggest apartment construction boom in decades.
Median rent rose just 0.5% in June, year over year.
You're listening to Revelation Radio, part of the Stream It Broadcast Network.
And welcome back to the second half of the Last Christian Newscast and radio show. Again, my name is J.D. Williams here in East Texas, joined there in Dallas by my friend, my co-host, my brother in Christ, Mr. T.L. Terry Farley. Terry, I want to get the news out of the way, and then we'll continue on. But I want to pause here for just a second because I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, or independent. If you serve the country, thank you for your service. Okay? I'm not going to, maybe you're going in a completely different direction. Okay? But still, you take the time to try to serve. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because the lieutenant governor in New Jersey has passed away. She died shortly after being hospitalized. This was today. There is no information yet on this. This is Sheila Oliver, 71 years old. There's absolutely nothing there tells me cause of death or anything else. But it was obviously a surprise, is all I can say. So hearts, thoughts and prayers to her. I don't see any mention of any religious affiliations or plans in that regard. So we can only hope they're right. Anyway, let's listen to, or let me see. Let me read this instead. Okay. This is a new poll conducted by the New York Times. Okay. And I think, again, I've always prefaced this. I'm a member of the U.S. Press Association, and I can tell you that the New York Times is not exactly what you would call a conservative newspaper. Okay. All right. The New York Times has issued its first poll of the 2024 election cycle, and it shows a dead heat between President Biden and former President Trump if both of the men are the party's nominees. 43% of registered voters say that they would support Biden. 43% said that they would back Trump. Again, this is a New York Times poll, so this is people that they poll. Okay, so that's going to be heavy Democrat. Just telling you, heavy Democrat. Okay, says perhaps the most notable characteristic of the poll is that these are highly critical of President Trump. By definition, they're also unenthusiastic about Biden, but they are considerably less happy with Trump. In other words, it's really biased. They're making it clear it's a really biased poll. It's a Democrat poll, but it's showing that of those that they poll, these guys are in a tie, 43% to 43%. New York Times poll. Well, and that should be a red flag for Mr. Biden, and it should be highly encouraging for Mr. Trump. It says that Biden enters a potential matchup or rematch with President Trump as a modest favorite, according to them. Yet the race is extremely close. anybody who assumes that the 2024 outcome is a sure bet repeat of the 2020 outcome, even in the rematch campaign, is making a mistake. So the New York Times isn't showing them a lot of, they're not real optimistic, put it to you that way. Okay. All right. Now, we played in the first half a lot of clips and made a lot of news reports about what's going on in the Ukraine right now. And Terry, you were saying something about the United States, you know, they're playing to the Congress and all that. I don't know if that's true or not, but one thing that I can tell you is that all these leaders from around the world, they listen to what the President of the United States has to say, right? So he sat down for an interview. And it's another one of those. Again, I've got to emphasize here, I am a member of the U.S. Press Association, so I'm authorized to play this clip. There's more. There's a lot more to it than this, but this one just stood out to me to a point where I just you got to hear this one. Okay, just listen to this one just for a moment.
My family, when they want to get an important message to me, they tape it on the mirror of the bathroom. I'm serious, not a joke.
So you wake up in the morning and...
Yeah, no, it's on the mirror. I guess I was down early on. It's not going to be 10 years ago. I was down or something. And my daughter Ashley taped on she's a social worker, taped on my mirror. Happiness is something to do, someone to love, and something to look forward to. And Dad, you have all those things.
Oh my goodness gracious! I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to even comment on something like that. So, are you telling me that in order for him to understand something, that you need to tape the messages to his bathroom mirror, to where he pays attention to it, where he reads it, where he understands it? I mean, I don't understand. Why in the world would the President of the United States tell us that in order for somebody to get his attention, they have to post something on his bathroom mirror? I mean, really? Terry, go ahead.
I really don't want to comment because they said it was his daughter that did it, and I'm going to leave it right there.
Yeah. Well, his daughter, he said when his family member wants him to know something, they tape the information on his bathroom mirror.
That. It's, I just couldn't help it here.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. Okay. Now, again, right before we get into Genesis, I'm going to give you guys an update on something which I think is really cool. Okay, you remember how we were talking about how science, they always trying to prove the Bible wrong, but every time they do it, they prove it right? Okay, so what have the Palestinians been trying to tell us for years now? That they're the ones that were in the area first. They're the ones that inhabited Jerusalem and all that, right? Isn't that what they said? Okay. Yeah. Now, I'm going to put this up on screen for you as I read this, okay? Just at least for a moment. This is a historical find in the Holy Land. It's a 2,000-year-old biblical coin, okay? Now, this, according to Fox News, this is a coin which it is written in ancient Hebrew, okay? And from Jerusalem, the Israel Antiquities Authority announced that it found a rare silver half-shekel coin from the time of the first Jewish revolt against the Romans over 2,000 years ago in the Judean desert. The discovery has electrified the Israeli media and the biblical and archaeology communities due to the coin's historical significance. But here's the deal. After 2 millennia, we have returned to our country, and Holy Jerusalem is again our capital. The find of the coin at these times is a reminder for us of what happened in the past, teaching us the importance of working toward unity. Now, here's the kicker to the whole thing. What is etched on that coin says, Holy Jerusalem. Holy Jerusalem is imprinted on that 2,000-plus-year-old coin. So if they weren't there, if the Israelis weren't in Jerusalem, why did they have coins made up, Holy Jerusalem, over 2,000 years ago? Got a comment here?
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. Yeah, again, once more, another piece of the puzzle falls into place.
Yep.
It, like you say, no matter how hard you try to prove God wrong in the Bible, wrong, and the story of the Jews, it keeps coming right back to bite you in the shade. So.
Absolutely. Okay, Terry, I'm going to give you 2 minutes now because once we get going, we're going to go all the way to the end. So go ahead and get everything that you need together there real quick. Just a really quick reminder that the Last Christian Newscast and radio show is proud to partner with a great educational program for youth based on solid Christian principles and values. Now, as a parent concerned about what your children are exposed to and learning in public schools, you will appreciate the opportunity to learn about Kirkwood's Christian online learning program that will keep your kids engaged and learning, all without worrying about the type of curriculum being presented to them. It only takes a few minutes to set up the program, and your kids can begin working independently on any device, including desktop computers, laptops, tablets, iPads, even smartphones. Now, you can learn more about this program on the Last Christian website at www.lastchristian.net. That's www.lastchristian.net for all of the free information on Kirkwood's homeschool learning program for kids. And hey, get this, the whole program, well, it only costs you about $1 a day. It doesn't get better than that. Visit us at www.lastchristian.net. That's www.lastchristian.net and receive your information all about Kirkwood's homeschooling learning program for kids. And with that, Terry, you are now up. It is now time for 2 minutes with Terry, starting right now.
So when this corruptible shall have put on incorruption, and this mortal shall have put on immortality, then shall be brought to pass the saying that is written, Death is swallowed up in victory. O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory? The sting of death is sin, and the strength of sin is the law. But thanks be to God, which gives us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. Therefore, my beloved brethren, be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, for as much as you know that your labor is not in vain in the Lord. But the similarity ends here. The angels are headed to judgment, reserved in chains under darkness, even as Sodom and Gomorrah. These filthy dreamers defile the flesh, despise dominion, speak evil of dignities. Yet Michael, the archangel, when contending with the devil, he disputed about the body of Moses, durst not bring against him a railing accusation, but said, The Lord rebuke thee. Jude's words to the wise, the archangel Michael did not challenge Satan himself, but declared, The Lord rebuke thee. Jude continues, these speak of evil those things which they knew not, but what they know naturally, as brute beasts and those things, they corrupt themselves. Woe unto them, for they have gone in the way of Cain, and ran greedily after the heir of Balaam for reward, and perished in the gainsaying of Korah. These are the spots in your feasts of charity, when they feast with you, feeding themselves without fear. Clouds they are, without water. Maranatha, Lord Jesus, come quickly.
Amen. Amen. As always, Terry, it's great. I'm really looking forward to the prophecy conference we got coming up, because that's when we're really going to get it. And I encourage people, please go to www.lastchristian.net. Visit us there. Again, that's www.lastchristian.net, and you guys will be able to get a hold of that prophecy conference as we go over it. We got one more show after this one, and then we're going to go to the prophecy conference for 3 shows in a row. Really looking forward to it. Okay, getting back now, Terry, to our discussion of Genesis, and what we're working toward here is discovering what went on in Sodom and Gomorrah, and how that translates into today, because the Lord said that as in the days of Noah, and by the way, Lot was there in the days of Noah, okay? Mm-hmm. As in the days of Noah, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. And we've gone over that. We talked about the ark. We talked about the animals 2 by 2. Terry mentioned something about sacrifice of animals once we got there. We're going to get into that too. But anyway, Terry, I'm just going to begin here in this is Genesis, and it is chapter 9, verses 18 through 23. And we did this. We mentioned this one last time, but I'm starting it because this is where we ended in the last show. So anyway, if you want to read that again, please.
Now the sons of Noah who went out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Ham was the father of Canaan. These three were the sons of Noah, and from these the whole earth was populated. And Noah began to be a farmer, and he planted a vineyard. Then he drank of the wine and was drunk, and became uncovered in his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and told his 2 brothers outside. But Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on both their shoulders, and went backward, and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were turned away, and they did not see their father's nakedness.
Okay, now Terry, we discussed this one a little bit in the last show, but we focused on the sons of Noah, and there's a real reason for that. But anyway, beginning there in verse 20 all the way through verse 23, I am not a biblical scholar, never haven't spent a day in seminary or any of that stuff. And why is that passage significant? If you know, in
sure.
verses
Well,
20?
I can throw in some jots and tittles, but first of all, let me point out for anybody that's listening that they won't be misled. I have been studying the Bible for almost half a century, but I do not count myself as a scholar, but rather as a student of the Bible. As many that have studied for longer than I also consider themselves, because the deeper you go, the more you respect the depths and the eternal and divine purposes of the Bible. Noah began to be a farmer, and he planted a vineyard. Then he drank of the wine and was drunk. Okay, so he gets out of the boat after all that time and all that pressure. He makes a vine, and he ends up, so we see some time passes. He ends up celebrating and drinking too much and gets drunk. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, told his 2 brothers outside, but Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on both their shoulders, went backward, and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were turned away, they did not see, because the Bible tells us we are not to look on nakedness, whether it's our father, our mother, our brother or sister. We're not supposed to get into those things. And that's the purpose of that. Okay. I'm waiting to see what the next verses are being used today, if there's a comment there that may be pregnant with need to be spoken.
Okay. Well, let's find out right now, because we're going to move on to Genesis chapter 9. This is verses 24 through 28, which are the next verses. So let's listen.
Excellent. So Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done to him. Then he said, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants he shall be to his brethren." And he said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem, and may Canaan be his servant. May God enlarge Japheth, and may he dwell in the tents of Shem, and may Canaan be his servant. And Noah lived after the flood 350 years. So all the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died.
Okay, 950 years. My goodness. Oh, boy. And but we talked about that too. And the reason the reason for it. Okay, now moving right along, we're going to go to Genesis, and now this is chapter 10, and it is verses 1 through 5. Terry?
Now this is the genealogy of the sons of Noah. Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The sons were born to them after the flood. The sons of Japheth were Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Tiras. The sons of Gomer were Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarmah. The sons of Javan were Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. From these, the coastland peoples of the Gentiles were separated into their lands, everyone according to his language, according to their families, into their nations.
Okay, now you see there that the language was different. Okay, well, this is also explained in the book of Genesis, the Tower of Babel. And honestly, I'm not sure if I have those slides loaded, just to be honest with you. If so, we'll get there. But I know I did a bunch of skips in this because I'm looking for a specific purpose and reason for going on in this particular teaching. Okay, but anyway, they were going to, and well, if I can ever get my words straight here, genealogy is what we're getting into here, and there's importance to it that we're going to uncover as we go forward. So I want to look now at Genesis. Again, this is chapter 10, verses 6 through 12, for those of you with a Bible. And again, I encourage you strongly, if you don't have one, get one. And if you do have one, open it up. Follow us along here as well. But Terry, this is Genesis 10, verses 6 through 12.
The sons of Ham were Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. The sons of Cush were Seba, Havilah, Sabta, Ramah, and Sabteca. And the sons of Ramah were Sheba and Dedan. Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Therefore it is said, like Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar. From that land he went to Assyria and built Nineveh, Rehoboth, Calah, and Rezin, between Nineveh and Calah. That is the principal city.
Okay, and I'm just going to keep rolling here, and we're going to go to Genesis, and this is chapter 10, verses 13 and 14.
Mizraim begot Ludim, Anamim, Lehabim, Naphtulum, Pathrushim, and Cashlehim, from whom came the Philistines and Captorim.
Okay, now the reason that I broke this one out and just to those two verses is because of that last, look at verse 14 there where it talks about from whom came the Philistines. You want to comment on that one, Terry? You may have a little bit more insight than I do.
Well, just briefly, obviously that helps us to understand the connection of all of these different genealogies. This is just one tiny example, very important, but one tiny example of the solidity of the Bible, because there are very few people listening that aren't going to recognize. They're going to be like, well, who are all those people? What are the names? What do they have meaning to? But then suddenly, in the midst of this, we're told about the Philistines.
Right. Right.
The picture begins to congeal. It begins to come together.
Exactly. So let's move on now to Genesis 10, verses 15 through 20.
Mitzrayim begot Ludim, Anamim, Lehabim, Naphtuhim, Pathrushim, and Cashulan, from whom came the Philistines and Captorim. Canaan begot Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth, the Jebusite, the Amorite, and the Girgashite, the Hivite, the Archite, and the Sinite, the Arvadite, the Zemarite, the Hamathite. Afterward, the families of the Canaanites were dispersed, and the border of the Canaanites was from Sidon as you go toward Gerar, as far as Gaza. Then as you go toward Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim, as far as Lasha. These were the sons of Ham, according to their families, according to their languages, in their lands, and in their nations.
Okay, there you see for the first time the mention of Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay, so you kind of keep following us here. I know there's a lot of begats in here, but just bear with us for a few minutes here. Okay. Next up is Genesis 10, verses 21 through 31. Terry.
And the children were born also to Shem, the father of all the children of Eber, the brother of Japheth, the elder. The sons of Shem were Elam, Asher, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram. The sons of Aram were Uz, Hul, Gether, and Mash. Arphaxad begat Selah, and Selah begat Eber. To Eber were born 2 sons. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days the earth was divided. And his brother's name was Joktan. Joktan begat Elmalodad, Shuv, Hazmarath, Jerah, Hadanaram, Uzal, Dikla, Obal, Abimiel, Sheba, Ophir, Havilah, and Jobab. All these were the sons of Joktan, and their dwelling place was from Mesha as you go toward Sephir, the mountain of the east. These were the sons of Shem, according to their families, according to their languages, in their lands, according to their nations.
Okay, and moving right along, we're going to go to Genesis 10, verse 32.
These were the families of the sons of Noah, according to their generations, in their nations, and from these the nations were divided on the earth after the flood.
So you can see here now, the genealogy is simply to show you that, yes, the earth is being now re-inhabited. Okay, and that's what the point of this is. And now, yes, I did put this in. This is the Tower of Babel. This is Genesis chapter 11, verses 1 through 4.
Now the whole earth had one language and one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. Then they said to one another, Come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly. They had brick for stone, and they had asphalt for mortar. And they said, Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower whose top is in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth.
Okay. Terry, you want to let everybody know what the significance of that scripture is?
Sure. This is where it shows how the people of that were there all came together, and they began to learn things and to prosper. And so they began to build these great towers, and they began to realize that they were, in fact, I'm kind of jumping ahead with what God tells us about this, and I don't know how far you're going, so maybe I need to wait and let us have God explain what's going on here.
Yeah, good idea. Okay, we're going to go to Genesis 11, and this is verses 5 through 9.
Okay. But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of men had built. And the Lord said, Indeed, the people are one, and they all have one language. And this is what they begin to do. Now, nothing that they propose to do will be withheld from them. Come, let us go down and there confuse their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of all the earth, and they ceased building the city. Therefore its name is called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth. And from there the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of all the earth.
Okay, so now you see where all these different languages came from. Because obviously Noah and all his family, they were speaking the same language. That's, should be clear. And then after the earth is beginning to be repopulated again, now they've worked together, and God's got to do something because they're actually they're taking up for themselves. Okay, they're moving for themselves now. They're not working for the Lord anymore. Now, we don't have, unfortunately, enough time to continue this. But again, that's okay. We got lots of shows. As long as the Lord gives us permission to keep broadcasting, and I mean by that, until we're raptured, okay, we'll continue this. We've got several more shows to go on this. I can tell you already, because we're going through Genesis a little bit here. We're going to get to Lot in the next show, and we're going to talk about Sodom and Gomorrah again, as long as the Lord gives us that broadcast day. If you have not accepted Jesus Christ, please do. Time is running out, and we encourage you to accept him before the rapture of the church. If he does give us another show, we'll be back next time with another edition of the Last Christian Newscast and Radio Show.
Thanks again for joining us today for the Last Christian Radio Show. And be sure to tune in every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday right here and at www.lastchristian.net. Until the trumpet sounds.